So here we are, Cleveland, Ohio. A football city scarred by heartbreak, desperate for glory, and standing at yet another crossroads. But this time, the drama playing out inside the Browns' locker room feels less like a standard NFL storyline and more like a full-blown soap opera. Only, there are no scripts, no rehearsals, and no commercial breaks. Just raw tension, fragile egos, and one name that has suddenly flipped the entire narrative on its head. And here's the twist. It's not Deshaun Watson, not Super Bowl veteran Joe Flacco, and not even the once hand-picked rookie Dylan Gabriel. The central figure of this storm is a name that wasn't supposed to define Cleveland's future this quickly: Shedeur Sanders. Think about that for a second. Sanders didn't ask to be the protagonist. He wasn't supposed to be. He walked into the building with expectations low enough to give everyone comfort. A developmental project, they called him. Someone who might need years of polish before he was ready to lead, but within weeks, he wasn't just another rookie. He was a headline, a spark, a problem, and depending on who you ask, the solution Cleveland has been chasing for decades. Behind closed doors, owner Jimmy Haslam isn't mincing words. Reports claim he's tired of watching mediocrity masquerade as patience. He's seen enough from the veterans. Enough from the staff hiding behind coach speak about leadership and timelines. Haslam has declared in no uncertain terms that Sanders isn't just a prospect. He's the guy. And if that means stepping on toes, burning bridges, or forcing decisions, then so be it. But here's where the drama twists into chaos. Because standing on the other side of this clash of visions is head coach Kevin Stefanski, a man blindsided by his own boss. For Stefanski, Joe Flacco represents safety, stability, the comfort of experience. It's not glamorous, it's not electrifying, but it's predictable. And predictability keeps a coach employed. Sanders, on the other hand, is something else entirely. He's unpredictable. He's electricity. He's danger. And for Stefanski, that danger might not just threaten the Browns' season, it might threaten his career. And then there's Dylan Gabriel, who has suddenly found himself trapped in the cruelest twist of all. Once the future, he's now the forgotten man, watching helplessly as Sanders steals every headline, every highlight reel, and every whisper of excitement from fans who used to believe in him. Gabriel's frustration simmers beneath the surface, and you can see it in the body language, hear it in the sound bites. He knows the tide has shifted, and he knows he's being left behind. So what we're left with is more than just a quarterback competition. It's a civil war inside a franchise haunted by its own past. The owner wants bold moves, the coach wants control, the quarterbacks want their shot, and the fans? They're glued to it like it's the NFL's latest Netflix drama. Because this isn't about who starts in week 1. This is about the soul of the Cleveland Browns. And the question that hangs over every practice, every meeting, every snap is this: will the Browns finally embrace the chaos or let fear consume them once again? When the history of NFL franchises is written, the defining chapters often don't come from the playbook, they come from power struggles. And right now, Cleveland is living through one of those moments. Inside the walls of Berea, one voice has risen above all others: Jimmy Haslam. The Browns owner has watched enough Sunday heartbreaks to last a lifetime, and patience is no longer in his vocabulary. League insiders whisper that Haslam isn't just nudging the coaching staff anymore. He's demanding that Shedeur Sanders be recognized not as a long-term experiment, but as the quarterback Cleveland has been waiting for. For Haslam, Sanders isn't just another rookie. He's marketable. He's electrifying. He's a walking highlight reel who could breathe life into a fan base that has grown weary of excuses. Haslam sees jersey sales, primetime games, national relevance all orbiting around number 5. He doesn't see risk, he sees opportunity, and he doesn't intend to watch it rot on the bench. But Kevin Stefanski? He sees something very different. To the head coach, Sanders is volatility dressed as promise. Yes, the flashes are undeniable, the lasers in practice, the leadership presence, the charisma that has teammates leaning in. But Stefanski has been around long enough to know that flashes can burn out quickly, and his job doesn't hinge on potential, it hinges on wins. That's why Stefanski clings to Joe Flacco. To the coach, Flacco isn't exciting, but he's steady. He represents predictability. A veteran who knows how to manage a game, who won't implode under pressure, who keeps the offense functional, if not thrilling. For a coach who preaches discipline and methodical execution, Flacco is the safety blanket, Sanders is the wild card. And here's the problem. When an owner and a coach see two different futures, only one vision can win. Haslam wants to slam the accelerator, to gamble on raw talent, and rewrite the Browns' trajectory overnight. Stefanski wants to ease onto the highway, one cautious merge at a time. And with every passing practice, the tension grows. Players feel it. Staff feel it. Even the fans sense it in the way rumors leak out anonymous whispers about disagreements behind closed doors. The Browns aren't just deciding who their quarterback is. They're deciding whose voice truly runs this franchise. Because if Haslam overrules his coach, the message is clear. Ownership controls the lineup. That sets a precedent no coaching staff can ever fully recover from. But if Stefanski wins and Sanders stays sidelined, then the Browns risk squandering the momentum of a generational talent, all to protect egos and timelines. Either way, something breaks. Trust in leadership, faith in the locker room, or patience in the fan base. And when those fractures begin, they don't heal easily. So here lies Cleveland's dilemma. Do you follow the instincts of an owner willing to gamble big, or the caution of a coach afraid of losing it all? One wants to ignite the future. The other wants to manage the present. But in the NFL, you can't serve two masters. For every rise in the NFL, there's a fall. And as Shedeur Sanders storms into the spotlight, the player feeling the weight of that shift more than anyone is Dylan Gabriel. Gabriel wasn't supposed to be an afterthought. In fact, just a few months ago, he was the plan. Drafted with the coaching staff's blessing, groomed as the project quarterback who could one day inherit the reins, Gabriel represented stability for Kevin Stefanski's vision of the Browns' future. He was the careful investment, a quarterback you could mold, teach, and build around slowly, the type of player who doesn't rock the boat but quietly earns his place. But then Shedeur happened. Sanders didn't just walk into training camp, he detonated it. Every practice clip, every spiral, every viral highlight tilted the room toward him. Fans started buzzing, teammates began whispering, and before Gabriel could even establish himself, the ground beneath his feet shifted. What makes this twist cruel is that Gabriel didn't necessarily fail. He didn't implode in preseason games, didn't embarrass himself in practice. His downfall isn't about mistakes. It's about being overshadowed. Imagine preparing your whole life for your shot, only to watch someone else, someone who wasn't even expected to make the final roster, steal your narrative in real time. That's where Gabriel is now. And the frustration is impossible to hide. Body language never lies. When Shedeur draws cheers from warm-up bombs, cameras catch Gabriel staring just a little too long. When reporters press him about competition, his soundbites carry a passive-aggressive edge. You can feel the tension, the disbelief that his promised path to the future has been hijacked before it even began. The locker room feels it too. Teammates see the imbalance. They know Gabriel was once the staff's golden boy, the future starter. Now he's the third name in every conversation, reduced to a placeholder, the other rookie. And nothing cuts deeper for a quarterback than irrelevance. Here's the dangerous part. Gabriel's story doesn't just affect him. It ripples through the entire quarterback room. If he grows resentful, if whispers start about trade requests or market interest from other teams, the Browns suddenly face a fractured depth chart. What was supposed to be a carefully built succession plan is now a messy power struggle with Gabriel caught in the middle. And make no mistake, he knows what's at stake. If Shedeur steps onto the field and delivers even just once, Gabriel's chapter in Cleveland may close before it truly begins. Overnight, he shifts from future starter to trade bait, from centerpiece to footnote. It's a cruel reality, but in the NFL, cruel realities are the rule, not the exception. So as Sanders ascends, Gabriel quietly unravels. Not because he lacked talent, but because timing and momentum turned against him. And that's the heartbreaking truth. Sometimes in football, your biggest opponent isn't across the line of scrimmage. It's standing right beside you in the same locker room. If you really want to know when a quarterback controversy turns toxic, don't look at the stat sheet. Don't even look at the press conferences. Look at the locker room, because that's where the truth always leaks out. And right now, the Browns' locker room is quietly splitting. On one side, you have the veterans, the guys who've been through countless seasons, seen quarterbacks come and go, and know how fragile chemistry can be. They lean toward Joe Flacco, not because he's exciting, but because he's safe. Flacco is a familiar face, a proven commodity. For older players whose careers don't have many seasons left, stability matters more than hype. They want the guy who won't throw them into chaos, who can manage the game and keep their playoff hopes alive. But then there are the younger players, the ones who live on social media, who see the highlight clips of Shedeur Sanders going viral, who feel the energy spike every time he uncorks a deep ball in practice. For them, it's not about safe, it's about juice. They want the quarterback who brings electricity, who makes them believe every snap could turn into something special. And whether Stefanski admits it or not, they know that quarterback is Sanders. The divide isn't loud, at least not yet. You won't hear players blasting coaches in press conferences. What you hear are whispers passing comments in the weight room, sideline reactions when Sanders gets cheers during warm-ups, subtle remarks like, "Kid's got an arm," or "Nobody else on this roster makes that throw." Those little signals matter, because once belief starts to shift in an NFL locker room, it's nearly impossible to reverse. And here's where it gets dangerous. Nothing poisons a team faster than the sense that politics is stronger than performance. When players start believing decisions aren't being made on merit but on ego or fear, buy-in evaporates. Guys stop running routes as sharp. Linemen stop blocking with that extra edge. Because deep down, they feel like the staff isn't playing to win, they're playing not to lose. You can already feel it brewing in Cleveland. The energy is different when Sanders takes the field. Sideline chatter grows louder, teammates perk up. Even defensive players, the ones paid to shut him down in practice, admit he brings a different vibe. That matters. Because football isn't just about X's and O's, it's about belief. And right now, belief is quietly tilting toward the rookie in number 5. The Browns may think they can control this narrative, but they can't. Once the locker room leans one way, it's only a matter of time before the tension spills out publicly. And when that happens, it's not just a quarterback controversy anymore, it's a full-blown identity crisis. So the question isn't just who the Browns want to start. The real question is, which side of the locker room are they willing to lose? If there's one thing the Browns should know by now, it's that quarterback controversies don't stay in-house for long. The moment whispers leak out of the locker room, the media pounces, and in Cleveland, that storm has already started. Sports talk shows are circling the situation like vultures. National analysts frame it as a showdown between a flashy rookie and a cautious coaching staff, while local reporters dig for every possible angle, feeding a fan base that's starved for headlines. Every Sanders highlight clip posted online racks up views in the millions, while every cautious word Stefanski gives in press conferences sounds weaker by the day. And the fans? They've chosen their side. On social media, the hashtags aren't subtle, start Sanders trends every Sunday, with fans posting mock lineups, stat projections, and even digital edits of Shedeur in primetime games. Meanwhile, Gabriel is barely mentioned, and Flacco, despite his steadiness, is painted as yesterday's news. For a franchise haunted by decades of quarterback missteps, the excitement around Sanders isn't just about one player, it's about hope. But media pressure is ruthless. Once it sets its target, it doesn't let up. Every incomplete pass from Flacco will be magnified. Every stalled drive will spark calls for Sanders. Even a preseason loss could ignite headlines like Browns wasting Sanders' talent on the bench. And for a team already fragile from within, that kind of narrative can be toxic. What makes this even more dangerous is perception. Ownership sees dollar signs in Sanders' growing popularity, the staff feels second-guessed at every turn, and the players sense the wave of public opinion crashing down. And in the NFL, perception often becomes reality. Once the outside noise grows loud enough, it starts seeping into decision-making, forcing moves that weren't ready to be made. Cleveland now finds itself in a no-win situation. If they hold Sanders back, they look timid. If they throw him in too early and he struggles, critics will bury the staff for ruining a talent. Either way, the media won't stop pressing the story. Because controversy sells, and right now, the Browns are the hottest controversy in football. For Shedeur Sanders, this is fuel. For Dylan Gabriel, it's a nightmare. And for the Browns, it's a pressure cooker ready to explode. For Kevin Stefanski, the worst-case scenario isn't just losing games, it's losing control. And as the Sanders-Gabriel saga spirals, that fear inches closer every day. From the outside, Stefanski seems calm. He gives short answers at pressers, keeps the playbook close, and insists the quarterback situation is under evaluation. But behind the scenes, he knows exactly what's at stake. He's not just fighting to keep his job secure, he's fighting for his reputation as a coach who can command a locker room. Because once players, fans, and even ownership stop believing in his authority, he's finished. The nightmare starts with Joe Flacco. Stefanski leans on the veteran because he trusts him, but every mediocre outing magnifies the gap between what's safe and what's electrifying. 1 3-and-out too many, 1 interception in a critical moment, and the boos rain down. The chants begin. Not for Gabriel, but for Shedeur. The rookie isn't just waiting in the wings. He's being demanded by the crowd. Now imagine the scene Stefanski dreads most. A national TV game, the Browns' offense sputtering, cameras zooming in on Sanders, warming up on the sideline as the crowd roars his name. Haslam is in the owner's box, staring down at his coach, silently asking why the future of the franchise is holding a clipboard. That's Stefanski's nightmare because once the owner sees the fans and the media united, his leverage evaporates. And then there's Gabriel, the forgotten man, watching his shot slip further away. If Gabriel's frustration boils over whether through leaks to reporters, a trade request, or even subtle disinterest in practice, it exposes Stefanski's entire plan as broken. He promised development. Instead, he delivered dysfunction. But here's the real kicker. In trying to protect Sanders by holding him back, Stefanski risks the opposite. If the rookie finally gets thrown in under chaotic circumstances, with pressure sky high and expectations unrealistic, any stumble will be pinned directly on the coach. He'll be accused of mishandling a generational talent, of waiting too long, of setting Sanders up to fail. Either way, the blame falls at Stefanski's feet. That's the tightrope he's walking. Play it safe with Flacco and watch the fan base revolt, or unleash Sanders too soon and risk being the scapegoat if it goes wrong. There is no perfect decision, only a question of which disaster hurts less. For Stefanski, the nightmare isn't just about quarterbacks, it's about survival. And survival in Cleveland has never come easy. If there's one thing that changes everything in the NFL, it's losing. Nothing strips away excuses, nothing accelerates drama, and nothing exposes cracks in leadership like a string of defeats. And for the Cleveland Browns, that nightmare scenario is becoming reality. On paper, the roster is too talented to collapse. The defense is stacked, the offensive line solid, the skill positions respectable. But games aren't won on paper, they're won on execution. And when your offense sputters week after week, it doesn't matter how elite your roster looks. Suddenly, every scoreboard feels like a reminder that this team is built on shaky ground. Early on, Stefanski and the staff could sell the narrative of patience. A close loss here, a missed opportunity there, all chalked up to growing pains and adjustments. But once those L's stack up, the narrative flips. Now, it's not about patience, it's about accountability. And accountability always circles back to one position: quarterback. Joe Flacco may be steady, but steady doesn't sell hope when you're 1-3 or 2-5 or staring down the barrel of another wasted season. Fans don't want explanations, they want change. And the name they're chanting isn't Gabriel's. It's Sanders. The losing record becomes fuel for every critic, every hot take, every fan calling into radio shows. Why draft Shedeur if you're not going to play him? How can we keep wasting years on veterans past their prime? Every press conference turns hostile. Every microphone shoved in Stefanski's face a demand for answers. And as the losses pile up, even players begin to shift. Wide receivers start grumbling about targets. Defensive stars grow frustrated that their efforts are wasted. The locker room doesn't fracture because of ego. It fractures because winning feels further away with each passing Sunday. And here's where it gets ugly. Once the Browns fall below 500, Haslam's patience wears thin. Owners don't tolerate irrelevance. They don't tolerate being mocked on national broadcasts as a team wasting talent, and they certainly don't tolerate empty seats in the stadium. A losing record forces his hand, and his hand points directly towards Stefanski and his refusal to hand Sanders the keys. The irony? The losing record is both Stefanski's greatest fear and Sanders' biggest opportunity. Every defeat makes it harder to justify keeping the rookie on the bench. Every ugly offensive performance makes Sanders look more like the solution. And once the season feels lost, the pressure to turn the page becomes undeniable. Losing isn't just about standings, it's about survival. And for the Browns, survival now depends on a decision that could define the franchise for the next decade. Do they double down on the cautious plan that's already failing? Or unleash the rookie who could either save them or bury them once and for all? When you look across the landscape of the NFL, one truth leaps off the page. Greatness doesn't wait for permission. History is littered with examples of young quarterbacks who were told they weren't ready until they were given the ball and rewrote the narrative overnight. And that's exactly the fork in the road staring Cleveland in the face with Shedeur Sanders. Think back to 2020. Justin Herbert wasn't supposed to start that early. The plan was for Tyrod Taylor to bridge the gap while Herbert developed. But one bizarre pregame medical mishap forced the rookie into action, and the rest is history. In one afternoon, Herbert transformed from backup to franchise cornerstone. The Chargers didn't look back. Go back even further. Patrick Mahomes sat for almost an entire year behind Alex Smith, but when Andy Reid finally made the move, the Chiefs went from good to unstoppable. Imagine if Kansas City had clung to comfort, afraid to take the leap. That dynasty might never have been born. And then there's Tom Brady, 6th-round pick. Nobody saw him as the guy. But when Drew Bledsoe went down in 2001, Brady stepped in and not only held his own, he altered the trajectory of the entire league. One injury, one opportunity, and suddenly the greatest dynasty in NFL history was underway. The Browns have to ask themselves, which side of history do they want to be on? Do they want to be remembered as the team that hesitated, that buried their talent under layers of politics and caution, only to watch him blossom elsewhere? Or do they want to be the franchise that took the leap, embraced chaos, and finally caught lightning in a bottle? Because history also delivers brutal cautionary tales. Ask the Chicago Bears, who waited too long, shuffled quarterbacks, and wasted years of a defense built to win now. Ask the Jets, who bungled talent around young signal callers and became the punchline of late-night shows. Ask the Browns themselves. This franchise knows better than anyone what it means to mishandle a quarterback, to burn through prospects, to hesitate until opportunity turns into regret. Shedeur Sanders isn't just a name. He's a moment in time. And the NFL has taught us that these moments are fleeting. A losing season without action corrodes confidence, erodes trust, and turns potential into wasted promise. The league is unforgiving. Hesitate for one season, and the entire trajectory of your franchise shifts. The greatest teams in history weren't built on caution. They were built on boldness, on recognizing the spark before anyone else and fanning it into a firestorm. The Bengals with Joe Burrow. The Bills with Josh Allen. The Ravens when they finally let Lamar Jackson play his style of football. Each leap was risky, each leap was criticized, and each leap transformed those franchises forever. So here's Cleveland's history lesson. Greatness doesn't wait. It doesn't care about development charts, or seniority, or comfort zones. It arrives like a storm, and if you don't embrace it, it passes you by. The question is simple. Will the Browns be remembered as the team that dared or the team that delayed? Here's the hard truth. Cleveland refuses to say out loud, Shedeur Sanders doesn't need them. The Browns need him. In an era where quarterbacks are more than just players, they're brands, leaders, and cultural icons, Sanders already has everything teams dream of before he's even played a meaningful NFL snap. He's got the name. He's got the pedigree. He's got the highlight reels that set social media on fire every weekend. And unlike most rookies, he doesn't have to beg for relevance. He brings it with him. That changes the balance of power completely. Most young quarterbacks are desperate for their team to validate them, to endorse them as the face of the franchise. Sanders? He walks into the room with leverage. If Cleveland refuses to play him, he doesn't fade away, he just grows louder. Every week he sits is another week his supporters rally. Another week rival GMs circle like sharks. Another week his spotlight shines brighter than the men actually playing under center. And here's the nightmare Cleveland won't admit. There are at least 10 other franchises who would pick up the phone tomorrow if Sanders were even remotely available. Teams starving for excitement, for ticket sales, for a face of the future. A young quarterback who throws darts, sells jerseys, and lights up practice highlights? That's gold in today's NFL. Sanders isn't just a football player, he's a business model. This is why the "we're protecting his development" excuse rings hollow. Protect him for who? Protect him for what? Shedeur doesn't need the Browns' careful hand-holding. He already has a national following, a reputation for working like a pro, and the swagger that says he belongs. If Cleveland won't unleash him, another franchise will. And that's what terrifies the front office. Because the moment Sanders succeeds elsewhere, the Browns don't just lose a player, they lose their credibility. We've seen this before. The Cardinals let go of Josh Rosen only to watch him fade, but they corrected quickly by drafting Kyler Murray. The Patriots let Jimmy Garoppolo slip to San Francisco, where he instantly became a starter. The Chiefs let Alex Smith walk because they knew what they had in Mahomes. Teams move on quickly in the NFL. If Cleveland fumbles this, Sanders won't suffer, they will. That's the leverage he holds. The Browns are clinging to him like a secret, terrified of what happens if he either fails or thrives. But Sanders himself? He isn't begging for opportunity. He's too focused, too disciplined, too aware that if it's not here, it'll be somewhere else. His star isn't tied to the city of Cleveland, it's tied to his own performance. And that's the part Stefanski and Haslam can't seem to grasp. You don't own Shedeur Sanders. You either embrace him or you lose him. He's not a project. He's not a placeholder. He's an inevitability. And if the Browns are too blind or too afraid to see it, another franchise will, and they'll be the ones cashing in while Cleveland adds another chapter to its history of regret. Because the truth is simple. Sanders doesn't need the Browns to become a star. But the Browns may desperately need Sanders to avoid becoming irrelevant. At the end of the day, this entire saga isn't just about depth charts, coaching politics, or one rookie quarterback's trajectory. It's about legacy. The Cleveland Browns stand at a crossroads that will define how this franchise is remembered for the next decade. Will they be the team that finally recognized greatness when it walked through the door, or will they be remembered as the franchise that fumbled a once-in-a-generation opportunity because of fear, pride, and hesitation? The truth is brutal. The Browns don't have the luxury of time. This is a franchise with a tortured history at the quarterback position, from endless draft busts to veterans who could never get them over the hump. Shedeur Sanders represents something Cleveland rarely has a chance to reset, to embrace a future built not on excuses, but on courage. And every week he's held back, the window of opportunity narrows. For head coach Kevin Stefanski, this moment is especially perilous. If he resists and Sanders thrives elsewhere, his tenure will forever carry the stain of being the man who couldn't recognize destiny even when it stood right in front of him. For owner Jimmy Haslam, it's a chance to finally prove he can steer his team into the modern NFL instead of presiding over another decade of mediocrity. And for the players in that locker room, it's about believing in a leader who doesn't just talk about change, but embodies it every time he throws the football. Fans already sense it. They see the energy spike when Sanders takes the field. They hear the whispers from the locker room. They feel the tension growing with every conservative game plan and every wasted rep on veterans who aren't the future. To them, it isn't complicated. Sanders equals hope. And in a city starved for something to believe in, hope is priceless. But hope only matters if the franchise acts on it. Legacy isn't built on hesitation, it's built on boldness. Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, their franchises trusted them before they were ready, and history rewarded that courage. Cleveland now faces the exact same decision. Do they leap, or do they cling to safety and watch greatness slip away? Because make no mistake, Shedeur Sanders will rise whether in Cleveland or elsewhere. His talent, charisma, and leadership are too undeniable to be buried. The only question left is whether the Browns will be remembered as the team that finally embraced its future, or the team that let fear of being wrong cost them everything. So here we are, at the fork in the road. One path leads to courage, belief, and possibly a new era of Browns football that rewrites decades of frustration. The other leads to hesitation, second-guessing, and another cautionary tale in the long, painful history of this franchise. The legacy of the Cleveland Browns hangs in the balance. Their decision on Shedeur Sanders will echo for years. The clock is ticking, and history, as always, is watching. If you enjoyed today's breakdown and want to keep up with all the drama, trades, and behind-the-scenes action in the NFL, then don't forget to hit that like button. It really helps this channel grow and lets us know you love this kind of content. And hey, don't keep it to yourself. Share this video with your friends, your group chats, or anyone who loves football as much as you do. The more the conversation spreads, the better it gets. Most importantly, if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the channel and tap the notification bell. That way, you'll never miss when we drop fresh stories, wild rumors, or breaking updates that the mainstream media won't talk about.